Carter, the Power Bryant, thank you for being so generous, good sir, that we had to move the times up here. I greatly appreciate you doing that, my man. How are you doing today?
Ready for your son to hit for the cycle tonight, but life is great, man.
Game got canceled as soon as we started.
Oh, really? So, man, well, we are you going to go live again tonight?
Probably Rufino and Joe's show, but it just, it is what it is. We're living the dream here. We're living the dream.
It's good to be with you, man. Started the Believe in Saints thing.
Oh, how about that? Tell us about that. Yeah, you got a new podcast here.
Yeah, well, you got to go 2 times a week. You talked me into it, so if it sucks, it's your fault. Per normal, but you'll be making a guest appearances on there.
Kind of what my wife says too. If it's wrong, it's your fault.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm excited to try it out. I actually just released my statistical deep dive on Spencer Rattler. So if you want to check it out, you know what's funny is it just always works out like this. Spencer Rattler is actually the quarterback I watched the most in the pre-draft cycle because it was just
really why.
I just find him to be so interesting. Like there's so much. Also, there's so much analysis out there, Blake, on Drake May. I've obviously covered Jayden Daniels, every single one of his snaps. And there's so much analysis on Caleb Williams. So I was like, well, let me do something different and do film studies on my NFL channel on Spencer Rattler. And I just think he was just a fascinating guy. But yeah, I just released my full statistical podcast breakdown, Believe in Saints. So go check it out.
All right, so let's start with that, and then we'll get to some LSU stuff here in just a moment. Carter, can I tell you something that really pisses me off? How in the good God, Rudy Poo, can any of these teams say that the reason that he fell was because of his QB1 Netflix stuff? He's a high school kid.
Yeah.
Now, he's not the player that everybody projected him to be now. Okay, like I see Saints fans slob-knobbing. Oh, he could replace Derek Carr. Well, be careful with that, okay? However, I think so. You've had guys like Aldon Smith. I mean, I'll even use an LSU example. Lael Collins was in a murder investigation. All right, you've had so many different. For crying out loud, what's your boy Laramie Tunsil had a gas mask smoking God heavens knows what, and we want to talk about QB1 with a high school kid of why he fell. Grow up.
Yeah, Blake, I don't believe that that's the reason.
I can't believe it either.
Yeah,
I don't believe it either.
But I will say that NFL teams will do whatever to sink a kid's value so you can get him cheaper. I mean, it's just how it is, especially for a guy.
But once he fell out of the first round, what did it matter? What are you trying to sink?
Well, you're trying to get as much value as you possibly could. Because for me, when I watched Spencer Rattler, I thought he was a lock to be a 3rd-round pick, especially after Bo Nix was taken 12th overall. So the fact that the Saints were able to get him in the 5th round was good value, even though I think he is probably like an Andy Dalton level player. Not great, but pretty solid. And at this point, I'll take solid for the Saints. But
Andy Dalton won a lot of division titles, got to the playoffs a lot now. I mean,
yeah, I don't think they're. I just think he's that level of a player. They're obviously different styles, right? Spencer, I think, has a little bit more juice in the arm. I believe Spencer has just a little bit, more mobility, and obviously Andy's just a bigger guy. But I'll take that. I really will. And he's an adult. And something else I like, Blake, is quarterbacks like Spencer Rattler, who went from the best quarterback situation you could be in, which was prime Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, to one of the worst in South Carolina with offensive lines that were so bad. And I think playing behind bad offensive lines made him play quicker with more processing speed. And I really liked watching him. It was a lot of fun seeing him try to overcome a lot of obstacles that were in front of him. So I think he's going to be solid.
All right. If we're going to talk the Saints, we got to talk about their arch rival, the Falcons.
Oh.
Carter, I'm not saying that Michael Penix Jr. is a bad quarterback at all. I see people trying to justify now him going in the top 8. Stop. He is not a top 8 quarterback. Carter, he's one Brussels sprout away from having both knees replaced again. All right? Like, I mean, we are talking about a guy that's had massive – now, I get that he led his team to a national title. I like him.
Oh, yeah.
Top 8 pick. And then Sean Payton's going to do Sean Payton things. Bo Nix at 12. What a – I mean, good Lord. What am I missing with some of these quarterbacks? I think that they reach more than Pat Beverly in a playoff game.
I like that, P. Bev. Look, here's what I'll say. I'm actually not totally opposed with taking another, quarterback at 8 if Kirk Cousins is so heavily injured. I just wouldn't do that if you just handed him $150 gazillion and you piss him off. He wasn't really involved in that process. When you could piss off your entire locker room. I also just don't believe in Michael Penix as a pro prospect, Blake. There was just too many games last year where, yes, he was unbelievably dominant. The Texas game was a Joe Burrow level playoff game. He really was that good in that game. Mm-hmm. But then you had the Michigan game.
And then Texas' secondary is horrible.
Yes.
So it's not like he was going against an elite secondary, but he goes against Michigan, and then guess what?
And then he had some other games where he was just bad. And the thing that kept driving me crazy during the draft process was, there was people that were talking about Jayden Daniels and his elite supporting cast. And it's true. Jayden had an elite supporting cast. He has 2 offensive tackles that are slated to go in the first round next year. And obviously Malik BTJ, a great play caller and all of that. But Jayden was dominant in every single game last year that he played outside of one half versus Florida State. Michael Penix had, I would consider, potentially an even better supporting cast than what LSU gave Jayden Daniels, right? If you really look at it, especially if you factor in the Pac-12 defenses that he was going up against, he had 3 receivers selected in the first round. He had an offensive tackle that went in the first round. Then he had another offensive lineman go in the second round. Then he had a play caller, Blake, who got hired to call plays for the Seahawks. How many college guys jump from OC to the collegiate level to the NFL level?
I mean, the only one that you could say that's been drafted in the first round would be Burrow. That would be the last one that an OC type of guy that flipped that way.
Yes, and Burrow and Jayden were dominant in every single time that they played. They were the freaking dude on the field. That is not the case for Michael Penix. I do think he's an overrated NFL draft prospect, and I would have never selected him there. I do think Bo Nix is also overvalued. I see what the Saints were trying to do. And Blake, I'm just going to stand by how I felt around this draft process, and it's not the popular thing to do. I think the guys that went number 1 and number 2 were far and away the best 1 and 2 guy than everyone else. I think there was a gap between those 2 guys and Drake May, but we'll see how it plays out.
You got to be patient with Drake May. You can't just throw him out there. I wouldn't mind if I think Jacoby Brissett is back in New England. I would let Jacoby play and start the entire year, God willing, and then give Drake a full year to get ready there. Carter, 6 LSU guys got drafted. 2 defensive linemen went to the same team in Jacksonville. I'm not going to go player by player.
Yeah.
What did you think of the top 4? Obviously, we had talked a lot about Jayden Daniels, so I'll go Malik, and I will go Brian Thomas Jr., their landing spots. What did you think about them and where they landed?
Yeah, so Blake, as you know, the thing I take the most serious is LSU guys going into the NFL. It's my favorite thing to do, right? It's a crapshoot, right? There's so many different things. I don't care that Malik Nabers went to a terrible situation in New York. He's the best player in the NFL draft. He's still going to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler. If he is still healthy, he is going to be transcendent in the NFL. He is as good as pretty much any NFL draft prospect at LSU that I've personally ever watched. I feel he's still going to be great. BTJ, I think, was a really good scenario, right? He's a lower key personality. He didn't have the allure of being a top first round pick. The Jaguars were able to trade back and still select the player that they were going to take at 17. And he's going to get to be in a wide receiver room, Blake, with some good complementary pieces, right? Christian
Kirk. Yeah.
Yeah. And Christian Kirk's more of a slot guy. Evan Ingram is more of a slot guy. All he's got to beat out is Gabe Davis, who's never really been great as a true outside guy. I think that's a really good spot for BTJ. And look, Blake, I sent you the data on this. This is just a fact, even though I am personally a fan of this player and I collect his cards, and he had a lot of bad luck with his health. Maason Smith, according to the mock draft consensus rankings, is one of the biggest reaches of the past decade in the NFL draft. That is not me saying this. I'm fine with where he went. That's what the NFL drafters say. And Blake, the mock draft consensus has been unfreaking believably accurate when it comes to evaluating prospects. So
you think what you're saying? Correct me if I'm hearing you correctly. What you're saying is based off this model, he could be a bust.
It's he's going to have to overcome a lot of historical data.
Carter, can I be real with you? And let's use him as an example. Unfortunate. I really don't think, and I'm being dead honest when I say this, I really don't know how much scouts watch football.
Oh, a lot of them don't. They just watch the highest upside clips, and they look at things like recruiting ranking. They look at things like your absolute best peak performance, and they can get a little carried away with that. You know, Maason Smith, Blake, towards the end of the year, one thing that really did help him out, he was
played a lot better.
He was ridiculous versus A&M in Wisconsin in the game's biggest moments. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. It's just it's working against him. It's via Austin Gale of Pro Football Focus and Arif Hassan. He is one of the 30 biggest draft day reaches, according to their research. But I'm cheering for Maason. I hope so. I have a ton of his autographs over here. And if he could stay healthy and everything works according to plan, it could work out. I love where Wingo landed. Jefferson, I also like where he landed as well.
He fell?
No, not at all. Injuries, what's something I heard from scouts? I heard you mention that.
Yeah, he had a really couple bad medicals.
Yeah, and look, I know what a lot of people would say. Hey, well, he played in the last game versus Wisconsin. He looked good, but that was one game, right? You know, same thing was true with Terrace Marshall. You know, Terrace Marshall had a bunch of medical red flags from the scouts, even though his final
which is playing out now.
Right, which his final year at LSU, he was healthy, right? Just because you were good in your final game.
Well, he didn't even play a full year.
Yeah,
he quit. I mean, he fully quit on the team. I mean,
he opted out. So I'm a little worried about that, but I think going to the Lions is going to be a good spot for him. Dan Campbell is the underdog story. That's Wingo, right? 3-star recruit. So hopefully it works out in Detroit for him.
All right. Let me paint a picture for you. I want your thought on this because I think, Carter, it's a very crucial week for LSU when it comes to the interior of that defensive line in the portal on the team that is going to be in 2024. Carter, you had 3 players got drafted at that position, the interior of the defensive line. Carter, they got to make moves this week. If they don't make moves this week, you're in trouble. Now, I do think that they are, so I don't want to hit I'm not telling LSU fans to hit the panic button, but I'm trying to be as realistic as I can here.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Williams here, the TCU DT, big number 52. Played in a bunch of these kind of weird 3-man kind of fronts, which is what he's not going to totally be asked to do at LSU. I like him. Like, I really like Aiden Huntington, the guy that just entered from ULM. So he just entered right when your show began.
Well, let me ask you this. He's more of an edge guy, right?
Yeah, he's one of these thicker kind of edge players.
Oh, thick like a bowl of oatmeal. Okay.
I like my football players thick, man. Every position. I gotta have it, man. This is a man's game. These are huge human beings running at fast.
There's just so many different things you could have said. There's so many different things you could have said.
Put it on t-shirts. Carter likes his football players thick. That's just life, man. I thicker than cold peanut butter. That's what you gotta have, baby. And Aiden, and he's got some bend too. I like him at ULM. I watched him for a little bit before I jumped on here. But yeah, he's like one of these 260 to 280 kind of guys. He's not a 300, 320 kind of guy, but I think he could play some 3-ish tech in some passing sense. But
they're going to have to completely revamp on what they do on the defensive line. I just don't think you got enough. Right. You're going to have to go to some odd man fronts. You're going to have to be very multiple. Look, and Carter, I've been abused by this, by me saying this. I don't think you're going to get 2 of the big 4. Sorry. I just don't. That's not – and I don't think it's Bo Davis's fault as everybody's tried to paint it here. I mean, this has got to be a Brian Kelly thing as much and Blake Baker thing as much as it is Bo Davis.
Yeah, it's an issue, Blake. It really, really, really is. But – it's I don't want to keep saying it because you and I have both been saying it and everyone's been saying it at this point. It does stink right now, especially since Blitty went to Auburn. And that's kind of
Isaiah Rakes. I think Isaiah Rakes is the sleepiest pickup for a team that's out there.
It's a good defensive line name too. Isaiah Rakes.
What if he played baseball?
Nah, that would be even better. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, he should have played baseball. He would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Look, we'll talk about them in a lot because baseball season's starting to wind down to some capacity. I mean, in 2 months it'll be pretty much over with here. But I will just say this: you got to have a big week. Bottom line. Okay, and if you don't, I don't want to hear anything from LSU fans. I'm going to continue to stay on my pedestal of where I think that you're going to be, and they're going to have to get over it because I don't think you're better than Ole Miss. Talent be talent. I really don't. I mean, you're going to have to outcoach. You're going to have to out-scheme. And I think that you can, which makes LSU even more dangerous, right? Like, I do think you can out-scheme teams. I really do think Blake Baker could out-scheme Lane Kiffin.
That's big. I go back to
– Do you want to know why I think that?
Let's hear it.
I went back and watched 4 of Lane Kiffin's biggest games, even going back to LSU in 22. Carter, there's something about Lane in play calling in big games where he folds.
Okay, I'm listening.
He's 1-5 in his last top 10 matchups. His play calling is not good enough. Just throwing that out there.
Here's what I'll say.
And I love Lane.
Yeah, I know.
I love Lane. I'm just saying.
His first 15 are normally pretty good, scripted.
Oh, hell yeah. Ask LSU in 22 how good it is. Shit, ask LSU in 23 how good it is.
Yeah, right. And then, his guys have a tendency to get out athlete, and you could just see him get frustrated with some of his play calling. Right. Something else for Blake is he will have a bye week before that game this year, and Ole Miss will be playing like the 5th game in 5 weeks. So I keep going back to this LSU schedule. It sets up really nicely for them. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, a couple more, and then I'll get you out of here. Carter Bryant joining us now. Believe in Saints, BLEAVNIN Saints. Carter, we don't normally talk about this kind of stuff in the segment we do with you, but I'm going to make an exception to my rule because I am not the guy that likes to come on here and talk about O-line versus D-line in these camp settings. I don't like going up against and talking about 7-on-7 camps. I think they're jokes. Okay, I really do think that they're jokes. Put the pads on and then shut your mouth. That's what I'm old school. However, there are exceptions to this rule. Bryce Underwood is the exception to that rule. Carter, I'm going to ask you the question that I think LSU fan wants to know and hear. Do we have a commitment from a quarterback in Bryce Underwood that's generational?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards saying yes. I don't like to use the word.
Okay, let me rephrase the word. Is he
transcendent? Yes.
Transcendent. That's a good word.
Yes. So like generational, I that's like
you go like Burrow.
Yeah, like that's like Tiger Woods level,
Fair, very fair. That's wrong word by me.
No, that's fine. But he could be. I mean, look, Blake, in my interview with him not too long ago, I show him completing a 15-yard behind the back pass in practice. I mean, some of this stuff is Mahomesian, right? It's insane. And I did watch a decent amount of the 7-on-7 setting. What I would say though, Blake, is I'm fully with you on the defensive line one-on-one drills. I think that's so overrated. I think it's so. There's so. I was an undersized defensive lineman. That was my best drill, and I would be the first to tell you that it's not like how the games are at all.
Ever.
Where I would push back just a little bit is I could make a case that 7-on-7 is becoming more and more like actual real football because you can't hit the QBs anymore. You can't hit people anymore, really.
The problem I have with them, Carter, is simple. Bryce Underwood will not take a hit. In a game, he will take a hit. How does he – and this is the thing about Jayden Daniels that went unnoticed. Oh, he gets hit hard. Well, some bitch kept getting up and continue to kick your ass. So, again – I don't want to overreact to Bryce Underwood. It's very hard for me not to overreact to him right now because, Carter, he's making, and I'm just going to say it, and you know how critical I can be on saying stuff like this when other people do it. I'm breaking my rule, and he better not. He better live up to it because I hate breaking my own rule. I'm blown away. I'm blown away by some of the throws that he's making. Let me give an example. I think he threw a touchdown to Francis from Carr. He looks off the safety, and then his footwork was perfect to come back to the drag route over a defender for a touchdown. It's not the arm talent. It was the footwork that was elite for me. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
And you heard, I think it was Bud Elliott of 247 Sports was like, Jesus Christ. And I quote tweeted, it's a Jesus Christ for me at the end, because that's exactly what I said. I just think, Carter, he is by far, because of the position he plays, he could be the best high school recruit that this team has ever seen.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. I mean, if you just go by prospect rankings and the fact that he plays a quarterback position, he is the best LSU prospect of all time. Now, I don't think anything will ever top the Leonard Fournette hype, but still, he is the best prospect, objectively speaking, all the way down to the decimal point.
Well, and we had to wait for Lenny to commit too, so
right, exactly.
The hype just continued to build. Let me ask you this question about the 7-on-7 too. Two things. Number one, does it solidify that this is over with him in recruiting because he's with LSU guys? That's the first question. But number two, are we 1,000% sure that Harlan Berry's in the right position?
Yeah, he looked good at receiver, right?
I mean, I heard somebody, I saw a clip, I don't know who posted it, but one of the scouts that was there literally said, and I'm quoting, good googly moogly. It's the whitest thing I've ever heard. I heard all weekend was good googly moogly. And I heard Mel Kiper for 3 straight days. Carter, I think that this offensive class might be one of the best, if not. I mean, I am hyping it up, but they're showing it. how much do you like that he's already with these LSU guys getting some reps?
Yeah, Blake, I'm not the recruiting insider. It's just not what I do. But I did get to spend a good bit of time with the dad and obviously Bryce Underwood. So his dad, Jay Underwood, and they're moving to Baton Rouge. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you, right? Of course, it's never over until pen to paper.
Correct.
I would be perplexed, jaw to the ground, if he is not an LSU Tiger. Of course, boosters can change your life in an instant if they really, really, really want you to go to some other school. He wants to be at LSU, playing for Team Flow, wearing the purple and gold. I would be very shocked if this doesn't happen, and we'll see.
How do you like him being with the LSU guys already getting reps?
Oh, it's great. It's great. And I'm with you on the Harlem Berry thing. I mean, he did look really good as a receiver. And look, going back to what you were saying about the 7-on-7 stuff, two things I'll say is Malik's best film was in 7-on-7 settings. He was probably the best 7-on-7 receiver I've ever seen. I mean, he dominated in these camp settings. So there could be some signal in that. And the second thing is Bryce Underwood is within the framework of the play quarterback, right? He does a really good job staying within the structure of how a play is designed.
I agree.
It's unbelievable. And he and I talked about that off camera for a while, how much he likes that, because he's athletic enough to do and have whirling Derbyshire, Johnny Manziel kind of plays. And he does have those kinds of plays, don't get me wrong. But a lot of his plays are, okay, I look right, it's not open, I'm working left. And it's not just 7-on-7 where you only have a certain amount of time. That's actually his high school tape as well. So he's truly special, and we're very lucky to get to witness this.
By the way, DeCorian Moore wasn't even there.
Yeah, and we'll see how things go with that. I
feel all right.
I believe you. You're at the biggest day of his life.
Look, he's still getting recruited. But one thing I didn't ask you, and this is gonna be the last thing before I get you out of here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cortez Hankton have a day, or have a draft. Carter, I mean, let me ask you this question about Cortez Hankton. So you have a coach that's on staff that had 6 guys drafted, the most in any position group, one position group in NFL history. There's like 17 coaches that have 5, right? He had 6. Are we legitimately looking at one of the biggest up-and-comers in Cortez Hankton?
Yeah, so when he came over, I had a Georgia source reach out to me, say, Carter, you'll be a head coach in the next 5 years. And that's probably
disagree. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, that'll probably happen at some point. There's a reason why he gets some NFL interviews, even though he's never really called a play before.
I mean, Carter, let me stop you. He was the second interview for Sean McVay.
Yeah, I mean, it's astonishing what he's done. But yeah, a Georgia source told me, Carter, he will be not only a head coach soon, but a great head coach. Now, that's not what I want to happen. I don't think any LSU fan wants that to happen, but he had a big draft. And Blake, it was a big draft for Brian Kelly, having the first offensive lineman be his, and then all his other assistants.
He had, of the top 10 picks, he had 3 of them.
Yeah, three of the top 6. So, I mean, that's obviously really good. Bo Davis had a massive draft with the first DT selected and the first
2. No, 2 of the first 3.
Right. So the first DT and then the first gap-eating nose tackle, which are 2 similar but different things. And then, of course, Blake Baker had a killer draft. Blake Baker and Jake Olson.
Yeah, all of their players were defensively. By the way,
right.
The best undrafted free agent pickup. You want to know who you want to know who got it? Speaking of Mizzou, the Rams and Cody Schrader.
I knew you were going to go Schrader. You love Schrader, man.
I fucking love Cody Schrader.
Cody Schrader.
You know what I'm going to do? Let me tell you what I'm going to do, because I'm going to take the Bengals and obviously the Commanders. I'm trading for Cody Schrader in Madden. Day one, pick one. I'll take a first round. They can take a first round pick. I love that kid.
And he went to the 49ers, Cody Schrader.
Oh, I thought he went to the Rams.
No, that was your other man crush, Blake Corum, that went to the Rams.
Oh, God. Ugh.
Blake Corum, but Kyron Williams is the RB1, another one of Brian Kelly's guys. But
oh, God. Why do these teams keep drafting so good?
Well, look, the thing that sucks for Cody Schrader is the 49ers historically have been not so great at picking running backs. But still, I like Cody Schrader.
He went to the 49ers. Could you imagine McCaffrey and Schrader in the backfield? Yuck.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Cody Schrader in the pros. I really don't.
That's Carter the Power Bryant, even though he's got a question here for him. Don't you ever talk shit about Cody Schrader again. Out the door, what were your thoughts on the Saints picks?
I like Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I think he has a good shot of being the best player, period, in this class. Fuago is a guy that I didn't like as much as some of the others. I'm not on like the same level of a Joel Delone. I don't watch as many prospects as he does. I thought there were
addicted to it. I don't
yeah.
know.
I mean, it takes a lot of time to look at each and every one of them. I wasn't as high on Fuaga as others, but I know smarter people loved him more than I loved him, so I was fine with that. And we'll see how these other pieces work out. But most notably, Spencer Rattler. I just released a podcast on I Believe in Saints, so check it out.
All right. Thank you for being flexible, my man.
All right, buddy. Cheers. Go Ben.
Well, again, canceled.
Oh,
but
I got canceled, but
yeah,
still go.
We'll see it. We'll see it on Wednesday. Hey, dude, get your cards ready, because I mean, you're going to be selling these baseball cards, and this kid's going to be